She went into labor, but her wealthy ex-husband and family ignored her calls. One wrong text changed as she walked away, heels clicking against convention center marble. Monica didn't notice the man watching from the bar. Miles Harrington had been nursing the same whiskey for an hour, originally planning to avoid his older brother entirely. But now he couldn't look away from the woman who'd just made Daniel work harder than he'd ever had to in his privileged life. Have you ever met someone who saw your potential before you believed in it yourself? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She sent a desperate text to her ex-husband during labor, but it went to the wrong number. 8 months pregnant, bleeding, and completely alone, Monica's worst nightmare was about to become her salvation. The man who answered wasn't the father of her baby. He was the brother who'd been secretly in love with her for years. What would you do if the person who promised to love you forever left you to give birth alone? Have you ever been abandoned by someone you trusted completely? Have you ever felt invisible to the people who claim to care? This is about more than a failed marriage. It's about discovering who truly shows up when your world falls apart. Stay with me to discover how one wrong text exposed a family's darkest secrets and changed everything. Hit that subscribe button because this story will make you question everything you think you know about loyalty and love. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, a tech summit in Austin where two worlds collided and set everything in motion. She was the only black woman in a room full of white venture capitalists, and he couldn't take his eyes off her, not because she was different, but because she belonged. Monica Robinson stood at the podium in the Austin Convention Center, her voice steady as she pitched her revolutionary healthcare app to a crowd that looked nothing like her. The conference center hummed with the electricity of possibility, million-dollar handshakes and billion-dollar dreams floating through air thick with ambition and expensive cologne. But while everyone else saw profit margins, Monica saw her grandmother dying because she couldn't afford insulin. HealthBridge connects low-income patients to affordable medication. Monica explained, her PowerPoint displaying statistics that made suits shift uncomfortably. She wasn't just presenting code. She was presenting a solution to problems these men had never faced. Daniel Harrington sat in the third row, his Harvard MBA and trust fund pedigree suddenly feeling inadequate next to this woman's raw determination. He'd come to Austin hunting for the next big investment, but found himself hunting for reasons to talk to her instead. When Monica finished to thunderous applause, Daniel didn't head for the networking reception like everyone else. He waited by the coffee station, watching her pack up her laptop with the same precision she'd used to demolish every question thrown at her. "Impressive presentation," he said as she reached for a cup. Their fingers brushed, his soft from spa treatments, hers callous from late nights coding. The contact lasted 3 seconds too long. "I'm Daniel Harrington, Harrington Ventures." Monica looked up, taking in his perfectly tailored suit and confidence that came from never being told no. "Monica Robinson. And yes, I know who you are." She'd researched every investor in that room. Old money, newer arrogance. "Your app could change everything," Daniel continued, his voice dropping to that register successful men used when they wanted something. "I'd love to discuss funding over dinner." Most people would have jumped. Monica stirred her coffee slowly. Funding or dinner? Both. His smile could have powered half of Texas. Unless you're already committed to someone else. She wasn't. Hadn't been for 2 years, too busy building something that mattered to waste time on men who saw her as either conquest or a charity case. But something in Daniel's eyes suggested he saw her as an equal. It was intoxicating. One dinner. Monica agreed, writing her number on his business card. "But we talk business first." As she walked away, heels clicking against convention center marble, Monica didn't notice the man watching from the bar. Miles Harrington had been nursing the same whiskey for an hour, originally planning to avoid his older brother entirely. But now he couldn't look away from the woman who'd just made Daniel work harder than he'd ever had to in his privileged life. Miles memorized everything. The way Monica's natural hair caught the light, how she commanded attention without demanding it, the confidence in her walk that suggested she'd earned everything she had. He'd seen Daniel charm 1,000 women, but never seen him chase one who made him earn her interest. Something twisted in Miles' chest as he watched his brother follow Monica toward the exit. Daniel always got everything he wanted, and he wanted her. But for the first time in his 28 years, Miles found himself wanting something Daniel had first. Have you ever met someone who saw your potential before you believed in it yourself? Drop a comment if you felt that instant connection that changes everything in 30 seconds. As Monica disappeared into the Austin night with Daniel's business card, she had no idea that Miles Harrington was already planning ways to see her again, or that her choice between brothers would eventually destroy a family fortune built on lies. Miles Harrington learned early that being the spare heir meant watching his brother take everything he wanted, including the woman who would haunt his dreams. The Harrington estate in Boston sprawled across manicured lawns like old money made manifest, all brick and ivy, and the kind of quiet that comes from never having to raise your voice to be heard. Miles stood at his bedroom window, sketch pad in hand, drawing the same face for the third time this week. Monica Robinson, the woman Daniel had been obsessing over since Austin. She's different, Daniel had announced over family dinner, cutting in a steak that cost more than most people's grocery budgets. Smart, ambitious, not impressed by the usual things. Miles' charcoal pencil moved across paper, capturing the curve of Monica's smile from memory. He'd studied her for exactly 47 minutes at the tech summit, long enough to memorize the way she tilted her head when thinking, short enough that Daniel never noticed his attention. Different how? Their mother Margot asked, her tone suggesting different wasn't necessarily good. She makes me work for it. Daniel grinned, the expression of a man who'd never had to work for anything. She's flying up next weekend. Miles' hand tightened around his pencil until it snapped. Daniel was bringing her here, to the house where Miles had spent 28 years being second choice, watching his older brother claim birthright, business success, and parental approval like they were his natural gifts. Growing up, Harrington meant understanding your place in the hierarchy. Daniel got groomed for leadership while Miles got sent to art school to find himself. Daniel got the corner office while Miles got a trust fund and vague expectations to contribute somehow. Daniel got to bring home girlfriends their parents actually wanted to meet. But none of those girlfriends had been Monica Robinson. Miles finished his sketch. Monica laughing at something off camera, her eyes crinkled with genuine joy. He'd captured her in a moment of unguarded happiness, the kind Daniel's money couldn't buy, but somehow always seemed to attract. His phone buzzed. Daniel, naturally, flying Monica up Friday. Make sure you're around for dinner. She should meet the family. Miles stared at the text until the words blurred. Meet the family. As if Monica was already being claimed, already being integrated into Daniel's perfect life trajectory. College, MBA, beautiful wife, corporate success, political connections. Everything mapped out since birth. Miles had never wanted to follow that path. He'd chosen art over business, creativity over capitalism, authenticity over approval. But watching Daniel prepare to add Monica to his collection of achievements made Miles reconsider everything he'd walked away from. He opened his laptop and searched for Monica's company. HealthBridge had gained serious traction since Austin. 3 major healthcare networks had signed on, and her social media showed a woman building an empire one line of code at a time. She wasn't just beautiful. She was brilliant, driven, and completely unaware that Miles existed. That last part was about to change. Miles opened a new browser tab and began researching everything about Monica Robinson's world. Her favorite coffee shop in Gary, Indiana. Her undergraduate work in computer science. Her mother's struggle with diabetes that had inspired HealthBridge. Her complete absence of social media posts featuring boyfriends or romantic interests. If Daniel wanted to win Monica with money and status, Miles would win her with understanding. He'd learn her dreams, her struggles, her passions. He'd become the person who saw her completely, not as a beautiful accessory to a successful life, but as a woman worth knowing. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Daniel. She's incredible, Miles. I think she might be the one. Miles closed his eyes, Monica's sketched face still visible behind his eyelids. Daniel thought he'd found the one. But Miles was beginning to suspect the one had found the wrong brother. Have you ever wanted something you knew you couldn't have? Someone who belonged to someone else? Tell me how you handled watching from the sidelines while someone else got everything you dreamed about. When Daniel brought Monica home for Thanksgiving, Miles made a decision that would change everything. He would make her forget his brother existed, even if it destroyed his family and cost him the only home he'd ever known. Monica fell in love with Daniel's confidence, but she should have paid attention to his need to win at everything, including her heart. The rooftop restaurant in downtown Austin glittered below them. City lights reflected in champagne glasses and Daniel's determined eyes as he dropped to one knee before dessert arrived. 6 months. They'd known each other exactly 6 months, and Daniel Harrington was proposing marriage like it was the next logical step in a business plan. Monica Robinson. Daniel's voice carried that commanding tone she'd first found attractive, now wondering if it was just his natural setting. You've changed my life in ways I never expected. Marry me. The diamond ring caught restaurant lights and threw rainbows across their table. 2 carats, flawless cut, probably cost more than her annual rent. Everything about the moment was perfect: romantic setting, expensive wine, handsome man with old money and newer ambitions. So why did Monica feel like she was watching someone else's proposal? Daniel, this is... She started, aware of other diners turning to watch their fairy tale moment. The pressure of public attention made her chest tight. This is really fast. The best investments are the ones you recognize immediately. Daniel smiled, still on one knee, still confident she'd say yes. I knew you were special the moment you walked off that stage in Austin. Special. The word sat wrong in Monica's mouth, tasting like something between compliment and commodity. She looked at Daniel, really looked, and saw a man who'd never been rejected, never been told to wait, never had to consider that what he wanted might not want him back. But she also saw someone who'd paid her mother's hospital bills without being asked, who'd introduced her to investors who actually listened to her ideas, who'd made her feel worthy of consideration in rooms where she'd always been overlooked. Yes, Monica heard herself say, not sure if she was accepting his proposal or just accepting the inevitable. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, perfect fit, because he'd somehow gotten her size from her best friend, and kissed her while the restaurant erupted in applause. His lips were possessive, claiming, like he'd just closed the deal of a lifetime. Later, in his penthouse overlooking the Austin skyline, Daniel made love to her with the same intensity he brought to everything else. Passionate but calculated, generous but somehow transactional. Monica found herself performing pleasure rather than feeling it, matching his rhythm instead of finding her own. I can't wait to make you Mrs. Harrington, Daniel whispered against her neck afterward. You're going to love Boston. Love the family. Love our life together. Our life. Already planned, already decided, already mapped out in Daniel's mind. Monica stared at the ceiling, engagement ring heavy on her finger, and wondered when she'd stop being a partner and started being a project. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. He's not who you think he is. Someone who cares. Monica stared at the text, Daniel's arm tightening around her waist like he sensed her attention drifting. Someone who cares. Not someone who loves, not someone who knows. Someone who cares enough to warn her. Who's texting at midnight? Daniel's voice carried an edge of possessiveness she hadn't heard before. Spam, probably. Monica deleted the message without showing him. But she couldn't delete the questions, now circling her mind like vultures. The next morning, Daniel was already planning their engagement party, guest list growing by the minute. 300 people, maybe 4. We'll do it at the estate. Mom will want to show you off to Boston society. Show you off. Like she was a prize he'd won, rather than a woman he'd chosen. Monica watched Daniel scroll through contacts, making lists, assigning tasks, managing their engagement like a corporate merger. Have you ever been swept off your feet only to realize you were being carried away from yourself? When does romantic intensity cross the line into something that feels more like acquisition than affection? As Monica said yes to every plan Daniel made, venue, date, guest list, wedding colors, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just agreed to become someone else entirely. And somewhere in Boston, the anonymous texter was preparing to prove that Daniel Harrington always got what he wanted, no matter what it cost anyone else. Monica learned that marrying into money didn't make you family. It made you an expensive acquisition that could be returned if defective. Margot's sitting room felt like a museum where Monica was both the visitor and the exhibit. Everything beautiful, cold, and carefully curated to remind her she didn't belong. The future Mrs. Daniel Harrington sat across from her soon-to-be mother-in-law. Wedding planning books spread between them like battle maps. Now about the ceremony. Margot's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to arranging other people's lives. St. Matthew's Cathedral has an opening in June. Very traditional, very appropriate for a Harrington wedding. Monica shifted uncomfortably on the antique sofa. Everything in this room cost more than her mother's house. Persian rugs, oil paintings of dead white men, furniture that belonged in a museum. Actually, Mrs. Harrington, Daniel and I were thinking something smaller. Maybe outdoors. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Margot's smile never wavered, but her eyes went arctic. Outdoor weddings are so casual. And please call me Margot. Mrs. Harrington was Daniel's grandmother. A remarkable woman who understood the importance of tradition. Translation: know your place. Of course, Monica agreed, hating herself for backing down so easily. St. Matthew's sounds lovely. Excellent. Now about your name. Margot made a note in her leather-bound planner. You'll be taking the Harrington name, naturally. We've already spoken to the social secretary about the announcement in the Globe. Monica's spine straightened. Actually, I was planning to hyphenate. Robinson Harrington. My work, my company. People know me as Monica Robinson. Another Arctic smile. How modern of you. But traditionally, wives take their husband's name completely. It shows commitment to the family unit. My name shows commitment to who I am. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Margot's fingers drummed against her planner, manicured nails clicking against leather like a countdown timer. Of course, dear. We can discuss it further. Margot's tone suggested the discussion was over and Monica had lost. Daniel mentioned you'd want to continue your little business after the wedding. Little business. Healthbridge had just secured its third major healthcare network partnership. But to Margot, it was a hobby that would naturally disappear once Monica accepted her proper role as a Harrington wife. Healthbridge isn't going anywhere, Monica said firmly. It's my life's work. How admirable. Though once children come, you'll find your priorities shifting naturally. Margot's smile had all the warmth of a tax audit. Daniel's always wanted a large family. For children, at least. For children. Daniel had mentioned wanting kids someday, but never specified a number. Apparently his mother had that figured out too.
The sitting room door opened and Miles appeared, carrying a tray with tea service that looked older than most countries. Monica hadn't seen him since the engagement dinner, when he'd barely spoken and left early with some excuse about an art showing. Ladies, Miles set the tray down, his eyes meeting Monica's for exactly 3 seconds longer than polite. Mother, Daniel's looking for you in the library. Something about the guest list. Wonderful. Monica, we'll continue this later. Margot swept out like a queen dismissing court, leaving Monica alone with the brother she couldn't seem to stop thinking about. Miles poured tea with steady hands, but Monica noticed the slight tremor in his fingers when he passed her cup. Their hands brushed, his warm, calloused from whatever artistic work he did, completely different from Daniel's soft grip. Sorry about that, Miles said quietly. She can be intense. She hates me. She doesn't hate you. Miles sat across from her, closer than brotherly politeness required. She's afraid of you. Afraid of me? I'm just a girl from Gary, Indiana. She's Boston royalty. Miles laughed to sound bitter. That's exactly why she's afraid. You're real. You've built something that matters, something that helps people. You're not impressed by old money or older names. He leaned forward, voice dropping. You make Daniel actually work to keep your attention. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Monica was engaged to his brother, sitting in his mother's house, planning a wedding that felt more like a corporate acquisition. But Miles was looking at her like she was the most fascinating person in the room, not the most problematic. I should go. Monica stood quickly. Daniel's probably wondering where I am. Monica! Miles stood too, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something warm and artistic, nothing like Daniel's expensive but cold scent. If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who gets what it's like to feel like an outsider in this family, I'm here. She almost reached for him, almost stepped closer to see if the electricity between them was real or just her imagination running wild from too much pressure and too little air in this suffocating house. Instead, she walked away, leaving Miles standing in his mother's perfect sitting room, surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing that mattered. Have you ever felt like you were losing yourself, trying to fit into someone else's world? When does compromise become self-erasure? And how do you find your way back to who you really are? The night before the wedding, Monica found Miles on the terrace, drunk and broken. "Don't marry him," he whispered, pulling her close enough to feel his heartbeat. "I can love you better than he ever will." And for one terrifying moment, Monica believed him. The best part of Monica's marriage lasted exactly 14 days. The length of their honeymoon in Santorini, before reality crashed back in. The Greek islands stretched endlessly blue in every direction, but even paradise couldn't wash away the feeling that Monica and Daniel were playing house rather than building a home. Their suite at the Canaves Oahe resort overlooked the Aegean Sea, infinity pool blending into horizon until you couldn't tell where luxury ended and nature began. For 2 weeks, they existed in a bubble where Daniel's phone stayed off and Monica's laptop remained closed. They made love on Egyptian cotton sheets with a Mediterranean breeze, carrying the scent of bougainvillea through open windows. Daniel was attentive, passionate, present in ways he'd never been during their engagement. "I love this version of us," Monica murmured against his chest one morning, their bodies still tangled from the night before. Sunlight painted geometric patterns across their bed, and for once, time felt infinite instead of scheduled. Daniel's arms tightened around her. "This is who we really are. Everything else is just noise." But even in paradise, Monica noticed things. The way Daniel arranged their daily activities like business meetings, breakfast at 9, beach time from 11 to 1, lunch at the hotel, afternoon exploration, dinner reservations confirmed days in advance. Romance, but scheduled. Spontaneity, but planned. She also noticed how he photographed everything. Every meal, every sunset, every candid moment of Monica laughing or looking thoughtful. Not because he wanted to remember, but because he wanted proof. Evidence of their perfect honeymoon to show everyone back home. "Do we have to document everything?" Monica asked on day 10, watching Daniel position her for another photo against the Santorini cliffs. "These are memories, baby. Our story." Daniel adjusted her position, directed her smile. "Besides, Mom wants to see everything. She's already planning our first dinner party." "Mom. Always back to Margot, even here." Monica forced a smile for the camera, but something cold settled in her stomach. Their honeymoon wasn't an escape from the Harrington expectations. It was preparation for them. On their last night, they made love with desperate intensity, both sensing the approaching end of their fantasy. Daniel was generous, skilled, technically perfect. But Monica found herself closing her eyes and imagining someone else's hands, someone else's voice whispering her name. "Miles." She thought about Miles and immediately hated herself for it. "You're mine now," Daniel whispered afterward, possessive and certain. "Mrs. Monica Harrington." She kept her name professionally, but legally, she was a Harrington now. The wedding had been everything Margot wanted: 300 guests, cathedral ceremony, reception at the family estate. Monica had walked down an aisle lined with people she didn't know, toward a future that felt predetermined. But for 14 days in Greece, she'd almost convinced herself it could work. The flight back to Boston shattered the illusion immediately. Daniel's phone came on before they touched down, buzzing with messages, meetings, crises that required immediate attention. By the time their car pulled up to the Beacon Hill townhouse, their wedding gift for Margot, Daniel was already scheduling conference calls. "Welcome home, Mrs. Harrington," he said, kissing her forehead while scrolling through emails. The townhouse was beautiful. Historic charm, Modern updates, rooms decorated by someone who'd never lived in them. Every piece of furniture was perfect, expensive, and felt like a museum exhibit she wasn't allowed to touch. Monica stood in the foyer, suitcase in hand, and realized she had no idea where anything belonged, including herself. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. "How was the honeymoon, baby?" Monica stared at the question, Daniel's voice carrying from his study as he dove back into business calls. How could she explain that paradise had felt like the last moments of freedom before a beautiful prison closed its doors? Another text, unknown number. "Hope you found what you were looking for in Greece. Someone who cares." The same mysterious texter from before the engagement. Monica looked around the perfect townhouse, listening to her husband schedule his re-entry into a life that had no room for Greek sunsets or infinite time. Do you believe people can change after marriage? Or do you think the honeymoon phase just reveals who someone really is when all the pressure disappears? Have you ever felt homesick for a place you've never lived? When Monica unpacked her suitcase later that night, she found a sketch tucked between her clothes. Her face drawn with such loving detail, it took her breath away. In the corner, barely visible, MH. Miles had somehow slipped it into her luggage, a reminder that someone saw her completely, even from a distance. And that someone wasn't her husband. Monica discovered that being Mrs. Daniel Harrington meant being seen, but never heard, loved but never understood, wanted but never chosen. The Beacon Hill townhouse that should have been their sanctuary felt like a beautiful prison, all historic charm and modern loneliness. Rooms full of expensive furniture, but empty of warmth. Monica sat at the kitchen island at 2 in the morning, laptop open, coding while Daniel slept upstairs. Again, 3 months of marriage had taught her Daniel's schedule better than her own. Conference calls at 6 a.m., gym at 7, office by 8:30, dinner meetings 4 nights a week, networking events on weekends. She'd married a man whose life had no room for spontaneity, intimacy, or her. Healthbridge was thriving. 2 new hospital partnerships, expansion into 3 more states. But Monica felt like she was disappearing. Every social event required the right dress, right conversation, right performance of being the perfect Harrington wife. She was becoming someone she didn't recognize. Her phone lit up with a text from Miles. Saw the article about Healthbridge in the Globe. "Proud of you." Simple words that made her chest tight. Daniel hadn't mentioned the article, probably hadn't read it. But Miles noticed everything she accomplished, everything that mattered to her. The front door opened and Daniel walked in, loosening his tie with the exhausted movements of a man carrying the weight of important decisions. Monica closed her laptop, schooling her expression into welcome home honey pleasantness. "Hey, baby." Daniel kissed her forehead, distracted. "Sorry I'm so late. The Singapore deal needed." "It's fine," Monica lied. Everything was always fine. His late nights, canceled dinners, forgotten conversations, forgotten wife. Daniel grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, already scrolling through his phone. "Oh, Mom called. Charity gala next Friday. Black tie. She ordered your dress. It's being delivered Thursday." Ordered your dress. Like Monica, was a paper doll who couldn't choose her own clothes. "Daniel, I can pick my own." She knows the designers, knows what works for these events. "You looked amazing at the Hamilton benefit." He wasn't even looking at her, thumb moving across his screen with practiced efficiency. Monica stared at her husband of 3 months. This man who'd once made her feel seen and valued, now treating her like beautiful furniture that required occasional maintenance. When had she become another item on his to-do list? "I'm going to bed," she said. "Be up in a minute," Daniel replied, already absorbed in whatever crisis required immediate attention. Monica climbed the stairs to their bedroom. Perfectly decorated by someone else, filled with wedding gifts from people she'd never see again. She lay in Egyptian cotton sheets that smelled like expensive detergent instead of home, listening to Daniel's voice carry from downstairs as he handled Singapore at midnight. Her phone buzzed. Miles again. "Can't sleep either?" Monica shouldn't respond. Shouldn't encourage whatever this was between them. But loneliness made people do dangerous things. "How did you know I was awake?" "Kitchen lights on. I'm across the street at Murphy's Pub, having a drink, thinking too much." Monica got up and looked out their bedroom window. Sure enough, Miles sat at the pub's window table, phone in one hand, whiskey in the other, looking up at her house like a lovesick teenager. "You're watching my house? I live 6 blocks away. Sometimes I walk by and wonder if you're happy." The question hung in the digital space between them like a challenge. Was she happy? 3 months ago, she would have said yes without thinking. Beautiful house, successful husband, financial security, social acceptance. Everything she'd thought she wanted. Now she couldn't remember the last time Daniel had asked her opinion about anything that mattered. Or the last time they'd made love instead of just having sex. Or the last time she'd felt like Monica Robinson instead of Mrs. Daniel Harrington. "I should be happy," she typed back. That's not the same thing. Daniel's footsteps on the stairs made Monica delete the text thread quickly. He came to bed smelling like conference rooms and other people's expectations, pulled her close with the absent affection of a man checking off another daily requirement. "Love you, baby," he murmured against her hair. "Love you too," Monica whispered back, the words feeling hollow as prayer in an empty church. But across the street, Miles finished his whiskey and walked home, carrying the weight of loving someone he couldn't have and knowing she was slowly dying in a life that looked perfect from the outside. Have you ever felt like you were losing yourself in someone else's idea of who you should be? When does love become performance? And how do you find your way back to who you really are? The next morning, Monica woke up alone. Daniel had already left for the office, but he'd left a note on his pillow. "Sorry about last night. Make sure you wear the blue dress Mom picked. Love you. D." Even his apologies came with instructions. Monica crumpled the note and made a decision that would change everything. She was going to stop being sorry for taking up space in her own life. The night Monica's marriage truly ended, she wasn't in Daniel's bed. She was in Miles' arms, finally understanding the difference between being wanted and being cherished. Rain hammered the windows of Miles' loft as Monica stood dripping in his doorway, not seeking shelter from the storm, but finally ready to walk into it. She'd left Daniel's charity gala at 9 p.m., tired of performing happiness for people who saw her as an accessory to his success. The fight had started over nothing and escalated to everything. Daniel correcting her conversation with the senator's wife. Monica mentioning her desire to expand HealthBridge internationally. Daniel's public dismissal. "Let's focus on perfecting the domestic market first, honey." Honey, like she was a child playing business instead of a woman building an empire. "I'm sorry for showing up like this." Monica's voice shook from cold and something deeper. I couldn't go home. Not yet." Miles opened his door wider, stepping aside to let her into his space. The loft was everything their Beacon Hill townhouse wasn't. Lived in, authentic, filled with his art and actual personality. Canvases lined the walls, sketches scattered across tables, the scent of oil paint and coffee instead of expensive air fresheners. "What happened?" Miles handed her a towel, his eyes taking in her formal gown, smeared makeup, the way she held herself like someone trying not to break apart. "He introduced me to someone tonight as the wife." Monica laughed bitterly, toweling rain from her hair. "Not Monica, not the founder of HealthBridge, just the wife. Like that's all I am now." Miles had been at the gala, obligatory family appearance, had watched Daniel parade Monica around like a trophy while completely missing the exhaustion in her eyes. He'd left early, unable to watch his brother treat the most extraordinary woman he'd ever met like beautiful furniture. "You're everything," Miles said quietly. "You always have been." Something shifted in the air between them. Monica looked up from the towel, meeting his eyes for the first time in months. Really meeting them. What she saw there made her breath catch. Not just desire, but recognition. Like Miles saw her completely. All the parts Daniel had forgotten existed. "Miles!" His name came out like a question and an answer. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the paint stain on his shirt sleeve, smell his cologne mixed with turpentine and possibilities. "Tell me to leave, and I'll drive you home right now." Instead, Monica reached up and touched his face, thumb tracing the line of his jaw. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." Miles captured her hand, kissing her palm with reverence that made her knees weak. "I've been in love with you since Austin. Since the moment I watched you walk into that conference room like you owned it. You were there. I've been everywhere you've been, Monica. Watching you shine while my brother treated you like just another acquisition." Miles' hands found her waist, pulling her closer. "You deserve someone who sees your worth." Monica should have pulled away, should have remembered her vows, her marriage, the life she'd built with Daniel. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed Miles with 3 months of loneliness, frustration, and desperate need to feel seen. He kissed her back like she was air after drowning, like salvation after years of being lost. His hands tangled in her wet hair, mouth moving against hers with hunger that had nothing to do with possession and everything to do with worship. "Are you sure?" Miles whispered against her lips, giving her one last chance to walk away. "I've never been more sure of anything." Miles lifted her, carrying her to his bedroom, where nothing matched but everything belonged. He set her down gently, hands trembling as he reached for the zipper of her formal gown. "You're shaking," Monica observed, covering his hands with hers. "I'm terrified," Miles admitted. "Terrified this is a dream. Terrified of what this means. Terrified I'll never be enough for you." Monica silenced him with another kiss, deeper this time, full of promises she'd never made to anyone. "You already are." Miles undressed her like unwrapping something sacred, each revealed inch of skin kissed and worshipped. When Monica stood naked before him, rain still drumming against windows, she felt beautiful for the first time in months. "You're perfect," Miles breathed, hands mapping her body like territory he'd dreamed of claiming. Monica pulled his shirt over his head, fingers exploring the lean muscle, the tattoo on his ribs she'd never known existed. Everything about Miles was different from Daniel. Rougher hands, honest responses, present in ways her husband had never learned to be. When they came together on his unmade bed, it wasn't polite married sex or scheduled intimacy. Miles moved inside her like prayer, like devotion, like she was the answer to every question he'd never known how to ask. "I see you," he whispered against her throat. "I've always seen you." Monica cried then, overwhelmed by the recognition, the tenderness, the feeling of being completely known. Miles kissed away her tears, made love to her with patience that had nothing to do with technique and everything to do with genuine care for her pleasure. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets that smelled like him, rain softening to gentle patter against glass. Monica traced patterns on Miles' chest, marveling at how right this felt despite being completely wrong. "What happens now?" she asked. Miles kissed the top of her head. "Now you decide what you want your life to look like." Have you ever found yourself in a situation where wrong felt more right than anything you'd experienced? How do you handle the moment when your heart wants something your mind knows will destroy everything you've built? As Monica left Miles' apartment at dawn, she didn't know Daniel had hired a private investigator to follow her, or that her affair was about to become the least of her problems when the truth about the Harrington family finally came to light.
Monica thought she was keeping one secret, but the Harrington family had been hiding a lie that would destroy everything she thought she knew about her marriage. The family lawyer's office felt like a tribunal, mahogany and leather, and the smell of old money protecting itself from inconvenient truths. Monica sat across from Daniel, Margot, and Charles Harrington Sr., a manila envelope between them like evidence in a murder trial. Private investigator photos spilled across the conference table. Monica leaving Miles' building at dawn. Their embrace in his doorway. Images that turned intimacy into ammunition. Adultery. Charles Sr.'s voice carried the cold satisfaction of a man who'd been waiting for this moment. With my own son, no less. Did you plan this from the beginning? Monica's hands shook as she looked at the photographs that reduced the most honest moment of her life to sordid evidence. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Daniel laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. Nothing just happens with you people. Everything's calculated, strategic. Was the endgame, Monica? Divorce settlement? Public sympathy? You people. The mask was finally off. Daniel. Monica turned to face her husband of 4 months, seeing him clearly for the first time. You haven't touched me in weeks. You treat me like an employee, not a wife. When was the last time you asked me about my work, my dreams, anything that matters to me? I gave you everything. Daniel's voice rose, revealing the entitled rage of someone who'd never been denied. Beautiful home, social status, financial security. What more could you want? To be seen, to be valued, to be loved for who I am, not what I represent. Margot leaned forward, manicured nails clicking against the table. Love is a luxury, dear. Marriage is a contract. You violated the terms. Monica stared at this woman who'd never worked a day in her life, never struggled, never had to choose between dignity and survival. What terms? Being grateful? Being silent? Being invisible? Being faithful? Charles Sr. interjected. Though I suppose we shouldn't be surprised. You're kind always. Finish that sentence. Monica's voice went deadly quiet. Please, finish it. The room fell silent. They'd said the quiet part out loud, revealed the racism that had always lived beneath their polite disapproval. The point is, Charles Sr. continued, adjusting his approach, you violated the prenuptial agreement. Adultery voids any financial settlement. Monica laughed, surprising everyone, including herself. You think I wanted money? I never wanted your money. I wanted marriage. I wanted a partner. I wanted to be loved, not purchased. She stood, gathering what remained of her dignity. Keep your money. Keep your status. Keep your beautiful, empty life. I'm done. Monica, wait. Miles spoke for the first time since entering the room. He'd been summoned like a defendant, not a son. There's something you need to know. Miles, don't. Margot's voice carried warning. No. Miles faced his family, jaw set with determination Monica had never seen before. She deserves the truth. He turned to Monica, eyes filled with pain and something that looked like relief. The reason I've always felt like an outsider in this family? I found out last year that Charles isn't my biological father. My mother had an affair 29 years ago. The room exploded. Margot's careful composure cracked. Charles Sr.'s face went purple with rage, and Daniel stared at his younger brother like he'd never seen him before. That's impossible, Daniel whispered. Miles pulled out his own manila envelope, DNA test results that would change the Harrington family tree forever. 99.7% certain. Charles Harrington is not my father. Monica sank back in her chair, mind racing through implications. If Miles wasn't a biological Harrington, then everything about family loyalty, inheritance, and obligation shifted. Who? Charles Sr.'s voice was barely controlled fury. Patrick Murphy, the artist Mom commissioned for her portrait in 1995. Miles looked at his mother, if she still counted as that. The same Patrick Murphy who owns the pub across from Monica's house. The pub where I've been drinking while watching her be miserable in a marriage that was doomed from the start. Margot finally spoke, voice hollow. How long have you known? Long enough to understand why I never fit. Long enough to realize that everything this family taught me about loyalty and obligation was built on lies. Miles turned to Monica. I'm not a Harrington. I don't know them anything. And neither do you. Monica felt angry, desperate sex building between her and Daniel that night. A last attempt to salvage something already dead. But his hands felt wrong now, his touch empty of everything she'd found with Miles. Physical passion couldn't fix the emotional void their marriage had become. The next morning, Daniel was gone. Phoenix business trip with his secretary, whom Monica now realized had been more than an employee for months. Have you ever learned something that shattered everything you thought you knew about your life? When the foundation cracks, do you try to rebuild on broken ground or find somewhere new to stand? 3 weeks later, Monica discovered she was pregnant. And 3 days after that, divorce papers arrived with a note from Daniel. Hope you and my brother will be very happy together. Try not to destroy him the way you destroyed us. But the biggest shock was yet to come, because Miles wasn't the only one with secrets that would reshape the Harrington legacy forever. Monica learned that when rich people divorce, love becomes a transaction and children become leverage. Unless you refuse to play their game. The courthouse steps where Monica walked away from the Harrington name felt like the first solid ground she'd stood on in months, cold concrete but real. She clutched the divorce decree in one hand and a pregnancy test in her purse. 6 weeks along with a child whose father had fled to Phoenix the moment things got complicated. Mrs. Robinson, her lawyer, Janet Kim, fell in a step beside her. "Are you sure about refusing alimony?" Daniel's team was prepared to offer substantial support. Monica stopped walking. Mrs. Robinson, not Mrs. Harrington anymore. The name felt like coming home after a long, expensive vacation in hell. "I'm sure. I don't want anything that ties me to that family. Even with a child coming." Monica's hand moved instinctively to her still flat stomach. She hadn't told anyone about the pregnancy yet. Not Daniel, not Miles, not even her mother. The baby was hers for now, the only thing in her life that belonged completely to her, especially with a child coming. Janet nodded, understanding more than she said. The no-contact clause is unusual but legally binding. Daniel can't reach out to you directly for any reason. Perfect. Monica never wanted to see Daniel Harrington again. Never wanted to explain why she'd chosen his brother. Never wanted to defend her right to be loved properly. Her phone buzzed. Miles, as if he could sense her thoughts. "Heard you were at the courthouse today. Are you okay?" Monica stared at the text, standing on State Street while Boston moved around her like she was invisible. Was she okay? Her marriage was over. Her husband had abandoned her. She was carrying a child whose father didn't know she existed, and the only man who'd ever loved her properly was forbidden fruit with a trust fund. "I will be," she typed back. "Can I see you? Please? Just to know you're safe." Monica looked up at the gray October sky, feeling the first drops of rain that would turn into the storm that changed everything. She should say no. Should walk away from Miles the same way she'd walked away from Daniel. Should start over completely, with no Harrington complications. Instead, she found herself in Miles' loft 2 hours later, suitcase in hand, rain soaking through her coat. "I'm leaving Boston," she said without preamble. "Tonight. I wanted to say goodbye." Miles took in her suitcase, her determined expression, the finality in her voice. "Where will you go?" "Chicago. My mom's there, and it's far enough away that I'll never accidentally run into your family at a charity gala." "Monica!" Miles stepped closer, hands reaching for her face with the reverence she'd never found with Daniel. "Come with me. We'll go anywhere you want. Start over together." The offer hung between them like everything she'd ever wanted and everything she couldn't have. Monica closed her eyes, memorizing the feel of his hands on her skin. "I can't. I won't be the woman who broke up a family, even a family built on lies. I won't be the reason you lose everything. I already lost everything when you married Daniel." Monica kissed him then, desperate and final, pouring months of love and longing and goodbye into the contact. Miles kissed her back like he was trying to memorize her taste, her warmth, the way she fit perfectly against him. They made love on his unmade bed while rain drummed against windows, passionate and heartbreaking and tinged with the knowledge that it was ending. Miles touched her like he was saying goodbye to every inch of her skin, and Monica gave herself to him completely one last time. "I love you," Miles whispered afterward, holding her close enough to share heartbeats. "I'll always love you. I know. That's why I have to go." Monica left at midnight, slipping out while Miles slept, taking nothing but her suitcase and the memory of being loved exactly as she was. She drove through the night toward Chicago, toward a life where she could be Monica Robinson again, where her child could grow up free from Harrington money and Harrington expectations. She never told Daniel about the pregnancy, never gave him the chance to claim ownership of another person's life. Her daughter, because somehow she knew it would be a daughter, would know love without conditions, strength without apology, worth without wealth. 3 weeks later, the story broke in the Boston Globe. Harrington family rocked by paternity scandal. Miles' parentage became public record. The family's perfect image cracked beyond repair, and the inheritance laws that had governed their empire for generations suddenly didn't apply. Monica read the article from her new apartment in Chicago's South Side, a universe away from Beacon Hill's perfection. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no lingering connection to people who had never truly seen her. Have you ever had to start completely over, walking away from everything that looked good from the outside but was destroying you inside? What did you learn about your own strength when everything familiar was stripped away? Monica was building a life Daniel couldn't touch, Miles couldn't complicate, and Margot couldn't control. She had her work, her growing company, her expanding belly, and for the first time in years, hope for a future she was creating entirely on her own terms. Until the night she went into labor 4 weeks early, bleeding and scared, with no one to call except the ghosts of choices that had brought her exactly where she needed to be. Monica discovered that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are, and she was stronger than any of them ever imagined. The South Side apartment was a universe away from Beacon Hill. Sirens instead of silence. Neighbors who knew your name instead of checking your pedigree. Real life instead of performance. Monica stood at her kitchen window at 7 months pregnant, watching kids play in the street while her laptop hummed with the sound of success she'd built entirely on her own. HealthBridge had exploded since her divorce. 3 new hospital networks, expansion into healthcare deserts across the Midwest, a partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services. Turns out, when you're not performing the role of perfect wife, you have a lot more energy for changing the world. Monica, you need to see this. Her business partner, Keisha, called from the living room where she'd set up a temporary office. Monica's apartment had become unofficial headquarters for the company. Dining room table covered in contracts, couch serving as conference space, kitchen island doubling as standing desk. Monica waddled over, hand on her lower back. The baby had been active all morning, probably responding to her mother's excitement about their biggest deal yet. Cleveland Medical Center wants to fast-track implementation, Keisha grinned, holding up a contract worth 7 figures. They want HealthBridge in every clinic by January. 7 figures. Monica sank onto the couch, staring at numbers that represented everything she'd dreamed about when she first pitched in Austin 2 years ago. Financial independence, the power to help millions of people, proof that a girl from Gary, Indiana, could build something that mattered. You okay? Keisha studied Monica's expression. This is good news, right? It's incredible news. Monica's hand moved to her belly, where her daughter kicked in response to her elevated heart rate. I just wish. She stopped herself. Wishing was dangerous territory these days. You wish what? Monica couldn't say it out loud. Couldn't admit that she wished Miles was there to celebrate with her. Couldn't acknowledge that she still thought about him every day, wondered how he was handling the family explosion, whether he ever missed her the way she missed him. Her phone had stayed silent for 8 months. No texts from unknown numbers, no mysterious calls, no sketches hidden in her mail. Miles was respecting her wishes, giving her the space she demanded. It was exactly what she'd wanted and completely devastating. Nothing, Monica liegt. Just pregnancy emotions. Her phone rang. Unknown Boston number. Monica's heart jumped before logic kicked in. Probably a business call, nothing more. Monica Robinson. She answered professionally. Ms. Robinson? This is Janet Kim, your attorney. I have some news about the Harrington situation. Monica's blood went cold. She'd explicitly requested no contact with that family. What kind of news? Miles Harrington has been trying to reach you. Nothing intrusive, just asked me to pass along message. He wanted you to know that he's moved to California, started his own art studio. He's doing well, and he hopes you are too. California, 3,000 miles away from Boston, from his family, from everything he'd known. Monica closed her eyes, imagining Miles starting over the same way she had, building a life on his own terms. There's something else, Janet continued. Daniel's secretary, the one he moved to Phoenix with, she's filed a lawsuit claiming he promised her marriage and then abandoned her when she got pregnant. Apparently, this is a pattern. Monica should have felt vindicated, should have been glad that Daniel's true character was being exposed publicly. Instead, she just felt tired. Thank you for letting me know, but I don't want updates on Daniel. Or the family. I meant what I said about moving forward. Of course. But Monica, Miles also wanted me to tell you that his offer stands. If you ever need anything at all, he's there. After hanging up, Monica sat in her South Side apartment, surrounded by the success she'd built and the independence she'd fought for. Everything she'd wanted was finally hers. So why did she feel like something essential was missing? Keisha was watching her with concern. That sounded heavy. Just closing old chapters. You sure? Because if you need to talk. A sharp pain cut across Monica's abdomen, making her gasp and double over. Then another, and another. Monica! Keisha was on her feet immediately. Monica looked down. Her water had broken, soaking through her yoga pants onto the apartment floor. 8 months. The baby was coming 4 weeks early. Hospital. Monica managed between contractions. Now, as Keisha grabbed keys and Monica's hospital bag, panic set in. She was alone. No husband, no partner, no one to hold her hand through labor. Her mother was visiting her sister in Atlanta, wouldn't be back for 2 days. For the first time since leaving Boston, Monica felt truly isolated. Not independent, alone. Another contraction hit, stronger this time, and Monica realized she was about to become a mother with no one to share the moment. No one to cut the cord, no one to cry with, no one to witness the most important day of her life. Her phone was in her purse. One call could change everything. Have you ever faced your most important moment completely alone? When independence becomes isolation, how do you find the courage to reach out for the support you need? As Keisha helped her to the car, Monica made a decision that would change everything. She was going to text the one person who'd ever loved her unconditionally, even if it meant risking her heart all over again. She just didn't realize she was about to send that text to the wrong number. In her moment of greatest desperation, Monica accidentally reached out to the one person she swore she'd forgotten, and discovered that love doesn't follow the rules of logic or pride. The ambulance ride through Chicago's midnight streets blurred past like a fever dream. Neon signs and street lights streaming by while Monica's world contracted to just breathing through the pain. Another contraction hit, stronger than before, and she fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. She needed Daniel. Despite everything, despite the divorce and abandonment and months of silence, she needed her baby's father to know his child was coming. Needed someone, anyone, to witness this moment and tell her everything would be okay. Monica scrolled through her contacts, vision blurring with tears and pain. Daniel Harrington. She hadn't deleted his number, couldn't quite bring herself to erase him completely. Her thumb hovered over his name as another wave of pain crashed through her. I'm in labor. Baby's coming early. I am scared. Send. Then another contraction hit, so powerful it made her scream. The paramedic was saying something about getting to the hospital, about breathing through the pain, but Monica could barely hear him over her own panic. She needed help. Real help. Not just medical attention, but someone who cared whether she lived or died, whether her baby was okay, whether she made it through the most terrifying night of her life. Please. I know you hate me, but I can't do this alone. I need you. Send. I'm at Chicago Memorial. Room 314 when you get this. I'm sorry for everything. Send. Monica's phone slipped from her fingers as the ambulance pulled into the hospital bay, pain overwhelming everything else. She was vaguely aware of being transferred to a gurney, of nurses asking questions she couldn't focus enough to answer, of being wheeled through hallways that smelled like disinfectant and fear. Ma'am, who can we call for you? A kind-faced nurse was holding Monica's phone, which had somehow made it to the labor and delivery room. Partner? Family member? I already... Monica gasped between contractions. I texted, he should be coming, but even as she said it, doubt crept in. Would Daniel even check his phone? Would he care enough to drop everything and fly to Chicago for a woman who destroyed his family? For a baby he'd never acknowledged? Hours passed. Monica labored alone, except for medical staff who were professional and competent, but not hers. Not people who loved her, not people who would remember this night as anything more than another shift, another delivery, another Tuesday night in the ER. At 3:17 a.m., her phone finally rang. Unknown California number. Monica. The voice made her sob with relief. Not Daniel's voice. Miles. Miles? How did you? I didn't. Monica couldn't form complete sentences around the pain and shock and overwhelming gratitude that someone had answered. You texted me. Thank God you texted me. Miles' voice was thick with emotion and something that sounded like he was moving fast. I'm at LAX. Got the first flight I could catch. I'll be there in 4 hours, okay? 4 hours, and you won't be alone anymore. Monica's brain struggled to process this information. She'd texted Miles? How was that possible? She'd been so careful to delete his contact, so determined to cut all ties. Then she remembered. The night she'd left Boston, upset and exhausted, she'd accidentally saved Miles' number under Daniel's name in her phone. A mistake she'd never noticed, never corrected because she'd been so committed to not contacting either of them. Miles, you don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was fierce with determination. I should have been there all along. I should have fought for you instead of letting you disappear. I'm not making that mistake again. But your family isn't my family anymore. You are. You and that baby are my family now, if you'll have me. Another contraction hit and Monica couldn't respond. Could only grip the phone and breathe through the pain while Miles talked her through it from 30,000 feet above the ground. Breathe with me, Monica. In and out. You're the strongest person I know. You can do this. I'm scared, Monica whispered when the contraction passed. I know, but you're not alone anymore. I'm coming, and I'm not leaving again. Ever. The labor progressed quickly after that, as if Monica's body had been waiting for permission to let go, to trust that someone would catch her if she fell. At 6:43 a.m., just as the sun painted Chicago's skyline gold through the hospital windows, Hope Miles Robinson entered the world. Monica held her daughter, tiny, perfect, with Daniel's nose and her own determined chin, and felt complete for the first time in months. But what made the moment perfect wasn't just the baby in her arms. It was Miles bursting through the door at 7:15 a.m., still in yesterday's clothes, eyes wild with worry and love and relief. He stopped short when he saw them, Monica exhausted but glowing, the baby peaceful against her chest. Is she? Miles approached slowly, like he was afraid to intrude on something sacred. She's perfect. Monica's voice was hoarse but happy. Miles, meet Hope. Hope, this is Miles. He dropped everything to be here for us. Miles reached out tentatively, finger touching Hope's tiny hand. She grasped it immediately, and Monica watched this man who wasn't her baby's father fall completely in love with both of them. What's her name? Miles asked softly. Monica had planned to name her Hope Monica Robinson. But looking at Miles, at this man who'd flown across the country because of an accidental text, who'd chosen them over everything else in his life, she changed her mind. Hope Miles Robinson, Monica said, watching his face transform with shock and joy. You named her after me? You saved us. Both of us. You answered when no one else would. Who would you call in your darkest moment? Have you ever been surprised by who showed up when you needed help most? When the person you expected to care had already walked away. As Monica dozed with Hope in her arms and Miles sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chair, she didn't know that someone had already posted screenshots of Daniel's ignored calls to social media. By the time she woke up, #DeadbeatDad was trending, and the internet had decided to choose sides in a story they didn't fully understand yet. The internet doesn't forget, and it definitely doesn't forgive, especially when a wealthy man abandons his pregnant ex-wife and his brother becomes the hero of the story. The hospital room became ground zero for a cultural conversation about abandonment, privilege, and who deserves to be saved when the world is watching. Monica woke from her first real sleep in days to find Keisha frantically showing her phone screens filled with notifications, comments, and shares that had transformed her private pain into public entertainment. Monica, you need to see this. Keisha's voice was tight with concern. Someone posted screenshots of your text messages, the ones you sent during labor. Monica's blood went cold. What do you mean, posted? The story was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Screenshots of her desperate messages to Daniel, time-stamped during her labor, followed by hours of silence. Then Miles' response, caring and immediate, flying across the country to be there. Rich guy abandons pregnant ex-wife during emergency labor. Brother steps up when biological father won't. This is what real men do. Daniel Harrington is trash. The hashtags were brutal. Hashtag deadbeat dad. Hashtag rich boy problems. Hashtag wrong brother right choice. Hashtag Team Miles. Monica's story had been reduced to social media soundbites. Her most vulnerable moment dissected by strangers who thought they knew the whole story from a few screenshots. How did this get out? Monica asked, scrolling through hundreds of comments, ranging from supportive to vicious. Hospital worker, maybe? Someone took a photo of your phone when the text came through. Keisha looked uncomfortable. Monica, there are reporters outside. They want a statement. Miles appeared in the doorway, coffee in one hand, fierce protectiveness in his eyes. He'd been fielding calls and managing hospital security all morning, trying to shield Monica from the media storm her accidental text had created. Don't talk to any of them, Miles said firmly. This isn't their story to tell. But it was too late. The internet had decided Monica was the wronged woman, Miles was the knight in shining armor, and Daniel was the villain who abandoned his family for a secretary in Phoenix. None of it was completely true, but truth didn't matter when the story was this good. Monica's phone rang constantly. News producers, podcast hosts, talk show bookers, all wanting her to share her side of the story. She ignored them all, focusing on hope, on healing, on the man who'd reorganized his entire life to be there for them. I should make a statement, Monica said on day 3, watching Miles pace their hospital room like a caged animal. The media attention was affecting him too. Paparazzi outside his California studio, reporters calling his friends, his art dealer, anyone connected to the Harrington family drama. You don't owe them anything. But people are making assumptions. About us, about what happened, about why I left Daniel. Miles sat on the edge of her bed, careful not to disturb Hope sleeping in her arms. What do you want to say? Monica looked at this man who'd given up everything to answer her desperate call, who was sleeping in hospital chairs and learning to change diapers for a baby that wasn't biologically his, who looked at Hope like she hung the moon, and at Monica like she was the answer to every prayer he'd never dared to pray. I want to tell them the truth, that sometimes the person who saves you isn't the one who created the problem. That family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. The hospital room door burst open. Daniel Harrington stood there, designer suit wrinkled, face flushed with anger and something that might have been panic. Behind him, security guards who'd obviously failed to stop him. Monica! Daniel's voice was different, desperate, defensive. We need to talk. Miles was on his feet immediately, placing himself between Daniel and the bed. You need to leave. Now. She's my wife. Ex-wife, Monica corrected coldly. And you need to keep your voice down. You're scaring the baby. Daniel looked at Hope for the first time, his daughter sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around her. Something flickered across his face, recognition, maybe regret, but it passed quickly. The media is destroying my reputation, Daniel said, as if that was Monica's problem to solve. People think I abandoned my child. You did abandon your child, Miles said quietly. You abandoned them both. I was in Phoenix on business. You were in Phoenix with your secretary, Monica interrupted. You've been there for months, Daniel. Don't pretend this was about work. Daniel's composure cracked. You destroyed my family. You and him. He pointed at Miles. You think I don't know what you two were doing behind my back? What we're doing now, Monica said clearly, is raising your daughter while you worry about your public image. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. He stared at the three of them. Monica fierce and protective, Miles loyal and present, Hope perfect and innocent of the drama surrounding her birth. I want a paternity test, Daniel said finally. Monica felt Miles tense beside her, but she kept her voice steady. Fine, but when it proves she's yours, you don't get to just claim her. Being a father is about showing up, not just genetics. Have you ever witnessed someone's private pain become public entertainment? When the world chooses sides in your story, how do you protect what matters most while everyone else fights over what they think they know? As security finally escorted Daniel out, Monica realized the paternity test would prove more than just Hope's father. It was about to expose a family secret that would bring down the entire Harrington empire and finally free them all from lies that had poisoned 3 generations. The paternity test was supposed to end the questions, but instead it exposed a secret that would bring down the entire Harrington empire. The lawyer's office felt different this time. Not like a tribunal, but like a crime scene where decades of lies were finally being examined under harsh lights. Monica sat beside Miles, Hope sleeping in her car's seat, while Daniel and his legal team occupied the opposite side of the conference table like an opposing army. The results are conclusive. Dr. Patricia Williams, the geneticist, opened the manila envelope with clinical precision. Daniel Harrington is the biological father of Hope Miles Robinson with 99.7% certainty. Monica felt Miles' hand tighten on hers. They'd both hoped, secretly and selfishly, that somehow Hope might be his, that the timing might have worked out differently, that love could overcome biology. But Hope was Daniel's daughter, which meant this wasn't ending cleanly. Good. Daniel leaned back in his chair with satisfaction. Now we could discuss custody arrangements and— There's more, Dr. Williams interrupted, consulting her notes. We ran additional tests, as requested by Mr. Miles Harrington's legal team. The results confirm that Charles Harrington Sr. is not Miles' biological father, as previously established. But there's an additional finding. The room went silent. Even the lawyers stopped shuffling papers. Miles Harrington and Daniel Harrington share only 23% DNA compatibility. They are half-brothers, not full brothers. But more significantly, Dr. Williams paused, looking around the room like she was about to detonate a bomb. Charles Harrington Sr. is also not Daniel's biological father. The explosion was immediate. Daniel shot to his feet, face going white, then red, then white again. That's impossible. I ran the tests 3 times to be certain. Neither Daniel nor Miles Harrington are biologically related to Charles Harrington Sr. You're both products of extramarital affairs. Monica stared across the table at Daniel, watching his entire identity crumble in real time. The golden boy, the chosen heir, the legitimate Harrington. None of it was true. He was just as illegitimate as Miles, just as much a product of Margot's infidelity. Ooh! Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. Miles was staring at the DNA report like it contained the secrets of the universe. Daniel, do you remember Mom's tennis instructor? The one she was always taking private lessons with when we were kids. Ricardo Santos, Daniel said slowly. But that was just— she said it was just tennis. 29 years ago, when you were conceived. The same way my father was Patrick Murphy 28 years ago when I was conceived. Miles looked at his half-brother with something like pity. We're both bastards, Daniel. Neither of us was ever the real heir. The legal implications hit immediately. If neither Daniel nor Miles were Charles Sr.'s biological children, then the Harrington inheritance, the family business, the trust funds, none of it legally belonged to them. Decades of wealth built on the assumption of legitimate heirs was suddenly in question. This changes everything. Daniel's lawyer was frantically making notes. The will, the business succession, the family trusts. It changes nothing, Monica interrupted, surprising everyone. Hope is still Daniel's daughter. That's the only DNA result that matters for this room. She stood, lifting Hope's car's seat with steady hands. Daniel, you have a choice. You could be her father, really be her father, or you can walk away clean. But you don't get to show up when it's convenient and disappear when it's not. Daniel looked at his daughter, really looked at her, for the first time since bursting into the hospital. Hope was awake now, dark eyes alert and curious, completely unaware that her existence had just exposed decades of family lies. I don't know how to be a father, Daniel admitted, voice broken. Neither did I, Miles said quietly. But I'm learning. Every day, I'm learning what it means to put someone else first. Monica watched these 2 men, half-brothers who'd spent their lives competing for love and inheritance that was never really theirs to claim, finally seeing each other clearly. The question is, Monica continued, are you willing to learn? Are you willing to be the father Hope deserves, not the father your family expected you to be? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring at Hope like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Smaller, more honest. Can I hold her? Monica hesitated, then lifted Hope from her carrier. Support her head. She's stronger than she looks, but she's still tiny. Daniel took his daughter with trembling hands, and something shifted in his face. The corporate mask fell away, revealing something raw and real underneath. Hope looked up at him with serious dark eyes, and Daniel started crying. "I'm sorry," he whispered, talking to Hope, but looking at Monica. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I ran away. I'm sorry I was too scared to love you the way you deserved. It wasn't enough." Years of damage couldn't be erased by one moment of honesty. But it was a beginning. Miles reached over and put his hand on Daniel's shoulder, the first brotherly gesture either of them could remember. "We can figure this out. All of us. Together. Would you expose the truth if it meant destroying a family, even one that tried to destroy you?" When DNA reveals that everyone's story is built on lies, how do you decide what really makes a family? As they left the lawyer's office, Monica realized that Hope would grow up with something neither Daniel nor Miles had ever experienced. Multiple adults who loved her unconditionally, not because of what she could give them or what she represented, but simply because she existed. The Harrington Empire might crumble under the weight of revealed lies, but Hope's foundation would be built on truth, love, and the radical idea that family is about who shows up, not who shares your genes. Monica had to choose between the father of her child who abandoned them and the man who saved them. But the choice had already been made in a hospital room at 3 a.m. The courthouse where Monica had once lost everything now became the place where she chose everything. Not just love, but the kind of family she wanted to build. 6 months after Hope's birth, she stood in family court with her daughter on her hip, watching Daniel sign custody papers that would give him weekend visitation and shared decision-making, but acknowledged that Hope's primary home was with her mother. And with Miles, who'd never left Chicago after that midnight flight. "This feels right," Daniel said, his signature still drying on documents that restructured their lives. He'd changed in the months since learning the truth about his parentage. Lost the corporate arrogance, found something more authentic underneath. She needs stability. She needs you both. Monica watched Daniel with Hope, who giggled and reached for his glasses with the easy affection of a child who knew she was loved. He came every other weekend, took her to the park, read her stories, learned to change diapers without complaining. He wasn't the father Monica had imagined when she'd first gotten pregnant, but he was trying to be the father Hope deserved. "Are you sure about this?" Monica asked Daniel privately while Miles buckled Hope in her car seat. "You could fight for more custody. Any judge would give you, what, 50-50 custody with a man who abandoned his pregnant ex-wife." Daniel shook his head. "I made my choice, Monica. I chose business over family, image over truth, pride over love. I'm living with those consequences." Daniel had lost more than just custody. The Harrington Empire was in chaos. Lawsuits from shareholders, IRS investigations, family wealth frozen, while legitimacy questions were resolved. Charles Sr. was facing fraud charges, Margot was in hiding, and the family name was synonymous with scandal. But Daniel had found something in the wreckage. His art gallery in Phoenix was thriving. His relationship with his secretary had ended amicably, and for the first time in his life, he was building something based on his own choices rather than family expectations. "I'm proud of you," Monica said, surprising them both. "I'm trying to be someone she can be proud of, too." Daniel nodded toward Hope, who was babbling contentedly in Miles' arms. "Someone who shows up instead of running away." 3 hours later, Monica and Miles stood in their apartment. No longer her apartment, but theirs legally and emotionally, watching Hope take her afternoon nap. The adoption papers were on the kitchen table, waiting for Monica's signature. Miles wanted to legally adopt Hope, wanted to be her father in every way that mattered. "You don't have to do this," Monica said for the 100th time. "Yes, I do." Miles pulled her close, arms wrapping around her waist like he'd done every day for 6 months. "She's mine, Monica. Has been since the moment I heard her cry over the phone. Biology doesn't make someone a father. Choice does." Monica leaned into his warmth, still amazed that this was her life. Miles had given up his California art studio, moved to Chicago, found gallery representation here. He painted during Hope's naps, taught art classes at the community center, built a life that revolved around them instead of asking them to revolve around him. "I love you," Monica said, words that still felt new and precious every time she spoke them. "I love you too. Both of you." Miles turned her in his arms, hands framing her face with the reverence that had never dimmed. When he kissed her, Monica tasted forever, not the desperate passion of their affair, but the deep certainty of choosing each other every day. Later, after Hope woke from her nap, demanding attention and snacks, Monica signed the adoption papers. Miles would legally become Hope's father, sharing parental rights and responsibilities with Daniel, but providing the daily love, structure, and presence that would shape who she became. That night, after Hope was asleep and adoption papers were filed, Monica and Miles made love with the celebration of people who'd found their way home. Miles loved her like a woman who had fought for everything she had, with reverence for her strength and tenderness for her scars. "We're a family," Miles whispered afterward, his hand resting on Monica's flat stomach. "All three of us. All four of us," Monica corrected, placing her hand over his. Miles went still. "Monica," she smiled, nervous and excited and completely certain. "I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I wanted to wait until after the adoption was finalized to tell you." Miles sat up, eyes wide with shock and joy. How do you feel about it?" "Happy. Terrified. Complete." Monica pulled him down for another kiss. "This baby will never question whether they're wanted, whether they belong, whether their family loves them unconditionally." "Never," Miles agreed fiercely. "This baby will grow up knowing that love is about choice, not obligation. That family is about who shows up, not who shares your DNA. Have you ever found love in an unexpected place, with someone who saw your worth before you believe in it yourself? What would your answer be to a proposal that honors your independence while offering true partnership?" As they lay together planning their future, Monica realized that the wrong text had led to the right life. Hope would grow up with a father who'd chosen her, a biological father who was learning to love properly, and parents who'd built their relationship on truth instead of expectation. It wasn't the family she'd planned, but it was the family she needed all along. 5 years later, Monica built an empire from code and courage, while Daniel learned that money can't buy back love you threw away, and Miles discovered that being the spare heir made him the perfect partner for a queen. The tech conference where they'd first met now hosted Monica as the keynote speaker, the girl from Gary, Indiana, who'd built a multi-million-dollar company while raising 2 children and loving the Wright brother. She stood on the same Austin Convention Center stage where Daniel had first noticed her, but everything else had changed. HealthBridge was now a national platform, serving millions of patients across healthcare deserts in all 50 states. Monica's TED Talk about building technology for social good had 40 million views. Forbes had named her one of the most influential entrepreneurs under 40. She testified before Congress about healthcare accessibility and had lunch with the president about digital equity initiatives. But the achievement she was proudest of sat in the front row, clapping enthusiastically. Hope, now 5 years old, had Daniel's sharp intelligence and Monica's determined chin. She could code basic programs, spoke fluent Spanish from her weekend visits with her biological father, and had Miles' artistic eye for color and composition. Most importantly, she knew without question that she was loved by multiple adults who'd chosen her over everything else in their lives. "Mama's famous," Hope whispered loudly to Miles, who was holding their 3-year-old son, Marcus, on his lap. Marcus had Miles' gentle temperament and Monica's curious nature, and absolutely adored his big sister, who read him stories about brave princesses and dragons who just needed hugs. "Mama's always been famous," Miles whispered back. "She just let the world catch up." In the audience, Daniel sat with his new girlfriend, Sarah, a kindergarten teacher who helped him understand that relationships require presence, not presence. He clapped proudly as his ex-wife took the stage, genuinely happy for her success and grateful that their complicated history had produced the 2 children who'd taught him what unconditional love actually meant. Thank you for that introduction, Monica began, her voice carrying easily through the packed auditorium. 5 years ago, I stood on this same stage pitching an idea that people said was too idealistic, too focused on helping instead of profit. Today, HealthBridge has connected over 15 million patients to affordable care, proving that technology built with purpose can change the world. The applause was thunderous, but Monica's eyes found her family in the front row. Miles, holding Marcus while Hope bounced in her seat with excitement. Daniel, recording her speech on his phone to show Hope later. Sarah, smiling with the warmth of someone who understood that blended families could be beautiful. But the most important thing I've learned, Monica continued, isn't about building companies or changing systems. It's about building families based on choice instead of obligation, on presence instead of genetics, on love instead of expectation. After her speech, they gathered for dinner at the same restaurant where Daniel had proposed 6 years earlier. The conversation was easy now, comfortable in ways none of them could have imagined during the chaos of divorce and paternity tests and public scandals. Hope wants to build an app that helps kids find their lost toys, Daniel told Miles, cutting his daughter's chicken while she explained her business plan with 5-year-old seriousness. Already thinking like an entrepreneur, Miles grinned, wiping Marcus's face as he painted it with mashed sweet potatoes. Monica watched this scene. 2 little ones being loved by multiple adults, conversation flowing between people who'd learned to prioritize children's well-being over adult egos, laughter mixed with the comfortable chaos of family dinner, and felt overwhelmed by gratitude. Her phone buzzed with notifications from social media, reporters wanting interviews, business opportunities generated by her keynote speech. 5 years ago, that attention would have meant everything. Now it was just background noise to the real conversation happening at their table. Later that night, in their hotel suite, Monica and Miles made love while their children slept in the adjoining room. Miles traced the stretch marks on her belly, proof of the children she'd carried, the life she'd built, the strength she'd always had. "My beautiful queen," Miles whispered, and for the first time in her life, Monica felt truly seen. "Your partner," Monica corrected, kissing him with 5 years of choosing each other behind it. "Always." They'd married 2 years after Hope's adoption was finalized, in a small ceremony at the community center where Miles taught art classes. Hope had been their flower girl. Marcus had slept through the entire service, and Daniel had walked Monica down the aisle, not giving her away, but acknowledging that she'd found her way home. The next morning, as they packed to return to Chicago, Hope asked the question that had been building in her 5-year-old mind. "Mama, why do I have 2 daddies when Marcus only has 1?" Monica knelt down to Hope's eye level, choosing her words carefully. "Because families are built different ways, sweetheart. Your daddy Daniel helped create you, and your daddy Miles chose to love you. Both kinds of love matter. Some extra loved? The most loved little girl in the world." Hope seemed satisfied with this explanation, returning to her coloring book where she was drawing their family, stick figures holding hands under a rainbow, everyone smiling. What would you do if someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself? Would you trust the person who saved you, or make the person who hurt you prove themselves? How do you build a family that honors truth over tradition? As their plane lifted off from Austin, Monica looked out the window at the city where her life had changed forever. She'd come there 6 years ago as a woman desperate to prove her worth. She was leaving as someone who knew her value couldn't be measured by anyone else's standards. Hope and Marcus dozed against Miles' shoulders while Monica reviewed expansion plans for HealthBridge's international launch. By Christmas, they'd be serving patients in 12 countries. By Hope's 6th birthday, Monica projected they'd hit their goal of 25 million connected patients. But the numbers that mattered most were sitting right there in seats 12A and 12B, 2 children who would grow up knowing that love is about recognition, not rescue. That the most powerful families aren't built on perfection, but on people who choose each other every day, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. So what would you do if someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself? Would you run? Or would you build something that lasts? Comment below with what you would have done in Monica's shoes. If this story reminded you that sometimes the wrong text leads to the right person, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about love, courage, and finding your worth. Tell me in the comments, would you have trusted Miles, or would you have made Daniel prove himself? And remember, the best love stories aren't about rescue. They're about recognition.